My name is Patricia Bridges of Bridges Pottery. I'm a potter on the North Shore of Long Island in New York, and I've been working in clay for over 2 decades. In this video, I'll show you how to make a slab constructed box using 2 different decorative treatments. I will teach you a few tips and tricks that make the slab construction process just a little easier. So to get started, I'm going to cover a board with some canvas. This canvas has a grid pattern printed on it in 1-inch increments, which make it an optimal work surface. I picked up this special canvas from Bamboo Tools on the web. To wrap the board, place it on top of the canvas. Canvas should be grid side down. Cut the canvas a few inches larger than the board and orient the board on the canvas so that the grid lines are straight. Adjust the board as you need. So staple the first side of the canvas to the board in several places. After you've stapled all 4 sides, move on to the corners and fold the canvas corner like a V and staple it as tight and flat as you can. The key here is to try and get the canvas smooth and straight. Sometimes a conventional ruler will mar the slab as you're measuring and cutting, so you can make a special tool that will make it easier when cutting slabs. Since the canvas has a grid, you really just need a straight edge. So using a regular eraser and a piece of wood, you can create a nice straight edge that will sit just above your slab. I'm using an old ruler and some glue. To roll out your slab, you'll need 2 sticks of wood about 1/4 of an inch thick, or however thick you really want your slab. Once you get a nice wedged pad of clay, place it on the board between the sticks and roll it out, flipping the pad of clay until it's as thick as your guide sticks. Check the slab for any air bubbles and pierce them with a pin tool. You can use any number of tools to clean the surface of the slab. I like to use a rib. And you basically want to create a nice clean surface for the clay. The slab is now ready. I'm using a carved rolling pin to create a decorative texture on my slab. You should spray the slab with a light coat of either PAM or WD-40 so that the clay does not stick to the textured rolling pin. My slab is pretty soft at this point, so I'm going to cut off the unusable bits and set it aside to harden up. After letting it set up, I'm ready to cut my pieces as needed. You can see that using the gridded canvas is key here. I can see exactly what I'm cutting, and the ruler's just acting as a straight edge sitting above the clay, creating a guide. So the whole cutting process becomes much more precise. Score each joint thoroughly and apply some slip. I like to use a squeeze bottle of fine sieve slip. A smooth consistency lets me use less slip with greater control of where it goes. You can see the slab pieces are firm, almost leather hard. Apply pressure when joining the pieces together. You will want to see the slip ooze out a little bit at the joint, and this is a good sign that you have a tight seal. You can use a tile to straighten up the sides if you need to. I like to add a little coil in the inside seams for security. Make sure they are nicely smoothed over. If your top needs to be trimmed, use a wire tool such as a Yumi that makes a nice clean cut. Tidy up the exterior, removing any bits of unwanted clay, and then check the bottom as well. Here I see a small gap in the seam, so I'll add a little bit of moist clay and integrate it in with a rib. Be sure that when you move your piece around, you sandwich it between two boards and then flip it. Any distortion of the slab or the piece increases the likelihood of warpage and cracks, so I like to use just two small pieces of sheetrock. So that's one treatment of a slab using texture. Let's look at another brief application. So instead of adding texture to this slab, I'm going to add a pattern using a stencil that I cut. You can use any sort of stencil, paper, plastic, fabric. So with the stencil on the prepared slab, roll it out so it's well integrated into the clay. I use a mix of underglaze and slip to paint on over the stencil. And allow it to dry. Then I gently peel off the stencil. And voila, there's my pattern. Rough cut your slab, set it aside to firm it up. And when almost leather hard, start cutting your pieces. I find the gridded canvas is a real time saver as it eliminates the need for templating and also reduces any errors in cutting my pieces. Sometimes I'll use an X-Acto knife to cut my pieces. It just depends on how dry the slab is. So don't throw away or recycle all those little pieces that you've cut off from your slab. These make great test pieces for glazes, and they have the actual texture or treatment on them so you can get a good realistic test. They now need to dry slowly. I'll leave them covered lightly with plastic for several days before allowing them to dry openly. Now it's time to glaze. First I'll inspect each piece for any rough edges or burrs that need filing. Where I signed this box needs a little bit of attention. With all of this texture on the larger box, I have chosen a glaze that will highlight the pattern and give it a rustic look. I'll glaze the shallow tray with clear so the pattern from the stencil can be the focus.